The frozen key bit into Jennifer Torres's palm like a blade of ice, and she stood knee-deep in snow, staring at what looked less like shelter and more like a tomb. The concrete entrance jutted from the Colorado mountainside, half buried in white, silent as the grave, possibly the worst decision she'd ever made, or the only one that could save them. Wind howled through the mountains, cutting through her worn Carhartt jacket like the fabric wasn't even there. Her fingers had gone numb 20 minutes ago. Breath came in short white clouds, and the key, the single piece of metal that represented everything she had left in this world, trembled in her frostbitten hand. Behind her, pressed against the rusted hood of their 23-year-old Honda Civic, 7-year-old Lily watched with eyes too wise for someone who still believed in Santa Claus. Those eyes had seen too much lately. Too many parking lots where they pretended the backseat was an adventure. Too many mornings waking to frost on the inside of the windows, and her mother's face trying to hide the fear that lived there now, permanent as a scar. Jennifer turned back to the structure. This was it. This was what $750 of her last $800 had bought. An underground property, as is, no guarantees, no refunds, no second chances. The auction listing had been sparse to the point of suspicious. Former Cold War-era storage facility, 40 acres, remote mountain location. The photos showed only this concrete face set into the hillside and a heavy steel door. No interior shots, no details beyond GPS coordinates and a vague reference to utilities unknown. 3 months ago, Jennifer Torres had been someone different. She'd been a mechanic at Davidson's Auto in Denver, one of only 2 women on a crew of 11. Good at her job, too, better than most of the men, though they'd never admit it. She could diagnose an engine problem by sound alone, rebuild a transmission in her sleep, had a reputation for fixing what everyone else said was unfixable. 9 years she'd worked there, ever since Lily was born. Single mother, sure, but making it work. Rent paid on time, food on the table, dance classes for Lily every Tuesday. A life that wasn't glamorous but was theirs. Then Davidson sold the shop. The new owner brought in his own crew, let her go on a Tuesday afternoon with 2 weeks severance and a handshake that felt like a slap. She tried everywhere after that, every shop, every dealership, every quick lube place that would let her fill out an application. But winter was slow season. Everyone was cutting back, not hiring. And the applications that asked about gaps in employment, about references, about why she'd left her last job, those applications went into a pile that never got called back. The rent came due, then past due. Then the eviction notice slipped under her door like a death sentence on cheap paper. She'd sold everything that wasn't nailed down. The TV, her tools. God, selling her tools had hurt worse than anything. Lily's bike, the furniture, packed what was left into garbage bags and the Civic's trunk. Told Lily they were going on an adventure. Drove to the Walmart parking lot on the edge of town and parked between a camper van and a semi-truck, hoping to disappear into the background of people who also had nowhere else to go. That was 6 weeks ago. 6 weeks of rotating between parking lots, moving before security noticed. 6 weeks of truck stop bathrooms and fast food sinks. 6 weeks of Lily doing homework by dome light, asking when they were going home. 6 weeks of Jennifer lying through her teeth, saying everything would be okay, saying mommy had a plan. She didn't have a plan. She had $800, a car with a check engine light that had been on for 3 months, and a daughter who was starting to realize that other kids didn't sleep in back seats. It was December 19th, 6 days before Christmas. The temperature had dropped into the teens, and even with the engine running and the heat blasting, cold seeped in through every gap in the Civic's weather stripping. Lily had started coughing 2 days ago. Nothing serious yet, but Jennifer knew how fast these things could turn. A cold became bronchitis. Bronchitis became pneumonia. Pneumonia became a hospital visit they couldn't afford, and questions from social workers that Jennifer couldn't answer without risking losing Lily entirely. That's when she found the listing. 2 in the morning, Lily asleep in the back under every jacket and blanket they owned. Jennifer sat in the driver's seat, phone at 4% battery, scrolling through rental listings she couldn't afford. A glitch in the website redirected her to an auction page, government surplus and foreclosed properties. Most of it was junk, abandoned lots in the middle of nowhere, burned out buildings condemned by the county. But one listing caught her eye. Underground property. Former Cold War-era storage facility. 40 acres, remote mountain location. As is, where is. Starting bid, $500. Auction ends in 6 hours. She clicked through the grainy photos. A concrete entrance set into a hillside. Heavy steel door. No interior shots. The description was almost suspiciously sparse. Property located in rural Teller County, Colorado. Structure built in 1972. Utilities unknown. Access road unpaved. Buyer responsible for all inspection and occupancy determinations. No warranty expressed or implied. It looked like a doomsday prepper's wet dream, or a hole in the ground where dreams went to die. Jennifer stared at the screen, her rational mind screaming that this was insane. She didn't know anything about the property except that it existed and no one else wanted it. Could be flooded, could be collapsed, could be contaminated with God knows what from whatever they'd stored there during the Cold War. Could be absolutely worthless. But it was shelter. And shelter was something they didn't have. She watched the auction countdown tick down. 5 hours, 4 hours, 3 hours. No one else was bidding. At 2 hours remaining, she placed a bid. $500. Her hands shook as she hit confirm. The site refreshed. She was the high bidder. The minutes crawled by. She kept refreshing, expecting someone to outbid her. Some logical person who had done their research and knew something she didn't. But no one came. At 17 minutes before the auction closed, she increased her bid to $750. It felt like throwing her life savings off a cliff, but at least it was a choice. At least it was something. When the auction closed at 6:43 in the morning, she owned an underground bunker in the mountains. Lily woke up an hour later coughing into her sleeve. Her cheeks were flushed and she felt warm to the touch. Jennifer kissed her forehead and tasted salt and fear. "Mom, are we going somewhere today?" Jennifer swallowed hard. "Yeah, baby. We're going to our new home." The drive took 4 hours. Interstate 70 west toward the mountains, then off onto Highway 24, then onto county roads that got narrower and less maintained with every turn. The Civic struggled on the inclines, engine whining, transmission slipping in that way that made Jennifer's mechanic instincts scream. They passed through a town called Cristola, population 900, where Jennifer stopped at a gas station and bought crackers, peanut butter, and 2 bottles of water with the last of her cash, except for the $50 she was saving for emergencies. The woman at the counter, weathered and gray-haired, looked at Lily with something like pity. "You folks passing through? Moving here?" "Moving here," Jennifer said, trying to sound confident. The woman raised an eyebrow. "Into town? Or just outside?" "Just outside." "Well," the woman said, handing back her change, "welcome to the middle of nowhere. Hope you brought warm clothes." The property management company's office was a single-wide trailer at the edge of town. A man named Frank Calloway, maybe 60, with a belly that pushed against his flannel shirt, handed her a manila envelope containing a deed, a survey map, and 2 keys on a ring. "You're the one who bought the bunker." Not quite a question. "That's me." He looked at Lily, then back at Jennifer. "You know what you're getting into out there?" "I'll figure it out. Property's been sitting empty since 2018. Previous owner died, estate sold it off. It's about 19 miles up Forest Service Road 81. 4-wheel drive recommended." He nodded toward the Civic, visible through the trailer's window. "But you might make it in that. The bunker itself, and I've never been inside. Exterior door was locked when we'd listed it. Whatever's in there, it's yours now, good or bad." Jennifer took the envelope. The keys were heavy, industrial, cold to the touch. "How do I know which key is which?" "Big one's for the exterior door. Small one's supposed to be for the interior, but I can't confirm that. Like I said, we never got in." He paused, studying her face with an expression that might have been concern. "Listen, miss, I don't know your story, and it's not my business. But it's supposed to snow tonight. If you're planning on staying out there, make sure you've got supplies. Cell service is spotty at best. Nearest neighbor is probably 12 miles. You break down or get stuck, it could be days before someone finds you." "We'll be fine," Jennifer said, hoping that saying it out loud would make it true. The road to the property wasn't really a road. It was 2 ruts cut through pine trees, overgrown with weeds and saplings. barely wide enough for the Civic. Branches scraped against the doors with sounds like fingernails on metal. The car bottomed out on rocks and frozen mud, the undercarriage scraping in ways that made Jennifer wince. Lily sat quietly in the passenger seat, clutching her stuffed rabbit, watching the forest close in around them. Is it going to be scary? No, sweetheart, Jennifer lied. It's going to be an adventure. Like camping. Exactly like camping, but underground. Like a hobbit house. Lily smiled at that. She'd read The Hobbit twice. Do you think there will be a round door? Maybe, Jennifer said, navigating around a fallen log. We'll see. The GPS on her phone died 2 miles in. Signal lost. She followed the hand-drawn survey map from the envelope, a photocopied thing that looked like it had been reproduced a dozen times. The landmarks matched: a split pine tree, a creek crossing, a boulder shaped like a sitting bear. After 40 minutes of crawling forward at 5 miles per hour, the trees opened into a clearing. Jennifer stopped the car. Her hands gripped the steering wheel hard enough to hurt. There it was. The bunker entrance rose from the hillside like a concrete scar on the landscape. The structure was maybe 20 feet wide, 12 feet tall, with a single massive steel door set into the center. Snow had drifted against the base in waves of white. Ice hung from the edges where water had seeped and frozen, creating jagged teeth that caught the weak winter sunlight. The whole thing looked Soviet, utilitarian, built to withstand the end of the world, or at least to hide from it. Wow, Lily breathed. It's really underground. Yeah, baby. How far down does it go? Jennifer looked at the deed. I don't know. They sat there for a long moment, engine idling, heat blowing, both of them staring at what Jennifer had bought with nearly everything they had left. It looked abandoned. It looked forgotten. It looked like the kind of place where people disappeared and were never heard from again. But it also looked like shelter. Jennifer turned off the engine. The silence that followed was total. No traffic, no voices, no city hum, just wind through pine trees and the tick of the cooling engine. Okay, she said. Let's see what we've got. The snow was deeper than it looked. Jennifer broke trail toward the entrance, Lily following in her footsteps, like she'd learned to do over the past 6 weeks. The clearing was maybe half an acre, ringed by dense forest. The survey map showed the 40 acres extended in every direction from this point, but she couldn't see where their property ended and the national forest began. It all looked the same, white, cold, and indifferent. The steel door was massive, 7 feet tall, 4 feet wide, with hinges the size of Jennifer's forearm. Rust streaked the surface in orange and brown rivers, decades of oxidation creating abstract patterns. A keyhole sat at chest height, surrounded by what looked like a locking mechanism designed to seal out nuclear fallout. The kind of engineering that spoke to paranoia or prudence, depending on your perspective. Jennifer pulled out the larger key. Her hands were shaking from cold or fear or both. She couldn't tell anymore. The key slid into the lock but didn't turn. She tried again, applying more pressure. Nothing. She wiggled it, pulled it out, examined the lock for ice or debris, tried again. Tried. On the 4th attempt, something clicked deep inside the mechanism. She turned the key clockwise, and with a sound like grinding metal and escaping air, the lock disengaged. The door shifted inward an inch. You did it, Mama, Lily cheered. Jennifer grabbed the handle and pulled. The door was heavy, heavier than she'd expected, easily 200 pounds of steel. But it swung open on hinges that groaned like they hadn't moved in years, the sound echoing off the concrete and out into the clearing. Cold air rushed out from the darkness beyond, carrying the smell of concrete and metal and something else. Something stale but not rotten, like an attic sealed for decades. Jennifer clicked on her phone's flashlight. The beam cut through the darkness, revealing a space beyond the door. Not a room exactly, but a chamber. Concrete walls, concrete floor, concrete ceiling, and at the far end, maybe 20 feet away, another door. This one was smaller, more normal-sized, with a simple handle in the second keyhole. Stay close, Jennifer said, taking Lily's hand. They stepped inside. The temperature dropped immediately, their breath fogging in the flashlight beam. The chamber was empty except for debris, a broken chair with 3 legs, some cable spools stacked in a corner, a torn tarp covering something Jennifer couldn't identify. The walls were marked with stains and cracks, but the structure seemed solid. No water pooling on the floor, no obvious collapse or structural damage. Jennifer approached the inner door and inserted the smaller key. It turned smoothly, and the door opened into complete darkness. She swept the flashlight left and right, up and down, trying to make sense of what she was seeing. A hallway, concrete walls lined with conduit and pipes, doors branching off to either side, and at the end, a stairwell leading down. "It's huge," Lily whispered, her voice echoing in the space. Jennifer's heart was pounding. This wasn't just a bunker. This was a facility, the kind of place that had been built with purpose and money, the kind of place that had been meant to last. "Okay," Sarah said, her voice steadier than she felt. "Let's see what we bought." They moved forward together, flashlight beam dancing ahead of them. The first door on the right opened into a room maybe 12 feet by 12 feet. Empty. The next door the same. But the third door revealed something different. Bunk beds, metal frames built into the wall, 4 of them stacked too high. Thin mattresses still in place, wrapped in plastic that had yellowed with age. A footlocker at the end of each bed, the kind Jennifer recognized from military surplus stores. "This is where people slept," Jennifer said. "Can I pick which one is mine?" Lily asked, already moving toward the beds. Jennifer let her explore while she checked the other rooms. A bathroom with 3 sinks, 3 toilet stalls, and 3 shower stalls, all dry but with fixtures that looked intact. A kitchen area with industrial sinks, a massive refrigerator that hummed faintly when she opened it, still powered somehow, and cabinets filled with dishes and utensils. A common room with tables and chairs, a corkboard on the wall still pinned with faded safety notices, and a calendar from 1998. Everything was covered in dust, but nothing was destroyed. It was like whoever had been here had simply walked away and locked the door behind them, expecting to return and finding they never did. Jennifer found Lily back in the bunk room, sitting on one of the lower beds with her stuffed rabbit beside her. "Mama, I think I like this one." Jennifer sat down next to her daughter. The mattress was firm, but not terrible. The plastic wrapping crinkled under her weight. She looked around at the concrete walls, the dim space, the cold air that smelled like decades of stillness. This was their home now, this underground tomb in the middle of nowhere, this bunker built to survive the end of the world, this desperate, impossible gamble that had cost them almost everything. Lily leaned against her, warm and small and trusting. "Is this really ours?" Jennifer wrapped her arm around her daughter and held her close. "Yeah, baby, this is really ours." Outside, the wind howled. Snow began to fall, thick and heavy, covering their footprints, covering the car, covering any trace that they had ever existed anywhere else. Inside, in the darkness of the bunker, Jennifer Torres made a decision. They would make this work. They had to. Because there was no going back now. No other options, no safety net. Just a steel door, a concrete shelter, and a mother's desperate hope that she had made the right choice. She stood and took Lily's hand. "Come on, let's explore the rest." They found the stairs and descended into the darkness, the beam of Jennifer's dying phone cutting through shadows that had waited years to be disturbed. The stairwell went down one level, then another, deeper into the mountain. Each level opened into more hallways, more rooms, more mysteries. The first night in the bunker, Jennifer didn't sleep at all. She lay on the plastic-wrapped mattress in the bunk room, Lily curled beside her under every blanket and jacket they owned, and listened to the silence. It wasn't the silence she'd grown used to in parking lots, broken by passing cars and distant sirens. This was total, absolute, the kind of quiet that pressed against your eardrums and made you hyper-aware of your own breathing, your own heartbeat. The bunker was enormous, far bigger than she'd imagined from the sparse auction listing. After their initial exploration, Jennifer estimated they'd only seen maybe a quarter of it. 3 levels that she'd found so far, each one branching into hallways and rooms that seemed to go on forever. The whole structure had been carved into the mountain itself, reinforced with concrete and steel that looked built to outlast civilization. By the weak light of her phone, now at 11% battery, she'd sketched a rough map on the back of the property deed. Level 1, living quarters, kitchen, bathroom, common areas, offices. Level 2, storage rooms, mechanical spaces, what looked like a medical bay with examination tables still intact. Level 3, she hadn't fully explored yet, but she'd seen enough to know that's where the real mysteries lived. When dawn came, though they couldn't see it from underground, Jennifer got up and began the work of making this place livable. Lily woke slowly, disoriented, asking where they were before memory caught up with her. Jennifer kissed her forehead and promised pancakes for breakfast, then had to explain they didn't have pancakes, but they had peanut butter crackers, which was almost the same thing. Almost. The kitchen became Jennifer's first project. She found the main electrical panel in a utility closet off the common room. The breakers were all switched off, but when she examined the system, her mechanic's eye recognized quality engineering. This wasn't some jerry-rigged setup. This was professional-grade infrastructure, overbuilt and redundant. Someone had designed this place to run for years without maintenance. She traced the conduit through the walls, following the power lines down to level 2. In a separate room marked generator, she found a massive diesel unit, the kind that could power a small hospital. Industrial-grade Caterpillar generator, probably 500 kilowatts. The fuel tank read 3/4 full. Jennifer walked around it slowly, assessing. Checked the oil, still golden, not black. Examined the belts and hoses, aged but not cracked. The air filter was surprisingly clean. Someone had maintained it well. She took a deep breath and hit the start button, not really expecting anything. The generator coughed once, twice, then roared to life with a sound that echoed through the entire facility like a sleeping giant awakening. Lily came running, eyes wide. "Mama, what is that?" "That baby is electricity. You fixed it." Jennifer grinned through the diesel fumes. It wasn't really broken, just sleeping. With power restored, the bunker transformed. Lights flickered on in the hallways, revealing decades of dust, but also the scope of what they now owned. The refrigerator in the kitchen hummed back to life. The heating system kicked on with a groan of old ductwork. Within an hour, the ambient temperature had risen from the low 40s to a comfortable 68 degrees. Jennifer found the water system next. The facility had its own well, drilled deep into the mountain aquifer, with filtration and storage tanks that held thousands of gallons. The pumps activated automatically when she restored power. She turned on a faucet in the kitchen, and after a minute of sputtering and brown water, it ran clear and cold. She let it run for 5 minutes, then filled a glass and tasted it. Clean, better than anything they'd gotten from gas station bathrooms. That night, for the first time in 6 weeks, Lily took a hot shower. Jennifer stood outside the bathroom door, listening to her daughter sing some song from school, and had to press her hand against the concrete wall to steady herself. They had running water, they had heat, they had electricity, they had shelter. Compared to sleeping in the Civic, it was a palace. Over the next 3 days, Jennifer threw herself into making the bunker habitable. She cleaned everything with bleach and soap she found in a storage closet. She washed the mattresses and bedding in the industrial sinks. She organized the kitchen, taking inventory of what they had, dozens of canned goods left behind, most expired but still sealed, rice, pasta, even coffee. She tested every light switch, every outlet, every system she could find. Her years as a mechanic had taught her how to read systems, how machines talk to each other, how to trace problems to their source. And this bunker, for all its age and abandonment, had been built by people who understood reliability. Lily helped in her own way, sweeping floors with a broom she'd found, organizing the common room, creating a home corner with the few toys and books they'd brought. She never complained about the concrete walls or the lack of windows or the fact that her Christmas wish list, which she'd written out carefully in November, would probably go unfulfilled this year. She just adapted the way children do, turning the bunker into an adventure rather than a prison. It was on the 4th day, December 23rd, that Lily made the discovery. Jennifer was in the mechanical room on level 2, trying to figure out why one section of the heating system wouldn't activate, when Lily's voice echoed down the stairwell. "Mama, Mama, come quick!" Jennifer's heart jumped. She dropped her wrench and ran, taking the stairs 2 at a time, her mind spinning through worst-case scenarios. Lily hurt, Lily trapped, Lily lost in the maze of hallways. But when she found her daughter, Lily was standing in front of a door on level 3, perfectly fine, just excited. Look, Lily said, pointing. The door was different from the others. Heavier, steel reinforced with what looked like blast shielding. And instead of a regular lock, it had a digital keypad mounted at shoulder height, its screen glowing a dull red with a single word displayed, locked. What's in there? Lily asked. I don't know, baby. Can we open it? Jennifer examined the keypad. It was sophisticated, probably biometric at one time, though the fingerprint scanner looked disabled. Now it just required a code, 6 digits based on the display, stenciled on the door in faded yellow paint. Authorized access only, security level required, asset storage. Not without the code. Maybe there's a key somewhere, Lily suggested, like in the movies, a secret key hidden in a book or under a rock. Jennifer smiled despite herself. Maybe, baby, but right now we need to focus on getting ready for Christmas, okay? We'll worry about mystery doors later. But the door nagged at her. That night, after Lily was asleep, Jennifer returned to level 3 and stood in front of it, studying the keypad, the reinforced frame, the warning stenciled on the steel. Asset storage. What kind of assets required this level of security in an abandoned Cold War bunker? She began searching in earnest the next day, Christmas Eve. While Lily made decorations from scraps of paper and tinfoil they'd found in the offices, Jennifer went through every file cabinet, every desk drawer, every box she could find. Most of the documents were mundane. Maintenance schedules, supply orders, shift logs. But slowly, a picture began to emerge. The facility had been built in 1972 by the Department of Defense as a communications relay station and emergency operations center. It had operated under various names and functions through the 80s and into the 90s. Then in 1996, ownership had transferred, not to another government agency, but to a private entity, a shell corporation called Winter Vault Holdings, LLC. Jennifer found the transfer documents in a filing cabinet in what must have been the facility director's office. The sale price, $1 symbolic. But the terms were extensive, pages of legal language that Jennifer couldn't fully parse but which seemed to grant the buyer complete control and secrecy. The facility was decommissioned from government use but maintained at the buyer's expense for private preservation and asset management purposes. She found maintenance logs going back 20 years. Someone had been coming here regularly, at least once a month, sometimes more, checking systems, running tests, recording readings. The logs were meticulous, almost obsessive, and they were all signed with the same initials, RA. The last entry was dated July 14, 2018, 5 years ago. After that, nothing. Jennifer's hands trembled as she turned the pages. This place hadn't been abandoned by accident. Someone had been taking care of it, maintaining it, keeping it operational for decades. And then suddenly, they'd stopped. Lily called her to the common room as shadows lengthened across the concrete floor, though down here there were no windows to mark the passage of time. Mom, it's almost dinner time, and tomorrow's Christmas. Jennifer heated canned soup on the kitchen stove, which worked perfectly once she'd figured out the gas line connection. The blue flame cast flickering light across Lily's face as she chattered about Santa and presents and whether he could find underground houses. Jennifer played along, nodding in the right places, but her mind kept circling back to those initials in the maintenance logs. RA, someone who'd cared for this facility with obsessive precision for 2 decades, then vanished. After Lily fell asleep clutching her stuffed rabbit, Jennifer returned to the director's office on level 1. In the corner sat a computer she'd noticed during earlier explorations, but hadn't had time to examine. The monitor was coated in dust so thick she had to wipe it with her sleeve. When she pressed the power button, nothing happened. She traced the power cord to the wall outlet, found it unplugged, and connected it. The machine hummed to life. Windows XP, the loading screen felt like archaeology. The hard drive had been wiped clean, or mostly clean. Jennifer knew enough about computers from her mechanic days to recognize that deletion wasn't always permanent. She dug through the temp folder, recovered files, fragments of what had once been here. PDF documents emerged from digital graves, technical manuals for facility systems, specifications for the generator, the water filtration, the ventilation, and then something different, a scanned letter, The file dated from the operating system's cache as accessed March 5, 2013. The letterhead made her breath catch. Robert Ashford, CEO, Ashford Technologies. The letter itself was addressed to someone named Raymond, thanking him for years of service as maintenance contractor. New protocols for accessing the facility. Emphasis on maintaining environmental controls in the vault. The vault. Asset storage. Level 3. Jennifer opened her phone, checked the signal. One bar flickering. She typed Robert Ashford into Google and watched the page load in painful increments, each piece of information appearing like puzzle pieces falling into place. Robert Ashford, tech entrepreneur, founded Ashford Technologies in 1983, sold to IBM in 1999 for $1.3 billion. Known as reclusive billionaire who dropped out of public life in early 2000s. Eccentric, according to sources. Paranoid, according to others. Obsessed with economic collapse and societal breakdown. Built multiple preservation facilities around the country, locations unknown. Died August 9, 2018, at age 71. No surviving family. Estate liquidated. Most assets sold off or donated. August 2018. Just weeks after that final maintenance log entry, Jennifer sat back in the chair, her mind racing. Ashford had owned this place, had maintained it for over 20 years, had built it into something more than a Cold War relic. And when he died, it had simply been forgotten, lost in the shuffle of estate sales and legal proceedings, listed as unremarkable property and auctioned off for pennies on the dollar to a desperate woman who didn't know what she was buying. But what had he been preserving? Christmas morning arrived without sunlight. Lily woke early, trying to hide her disappointment behind a brave smile that broke Jennifer's heart into smaller pieces than she knew existed. They ate oatmeal from packets Jennifer had found in the kitchen stores, the kind with artificial maple flavor that tasted like sweetened cardboard. Lily opened her one gift, a stuffed reindeer Jennifer had bought at the Cristola gas station with their last $5, wrapped in newspaper because that's all they had. I love him. I'm going to name him Comet. That's a perfect name. They spent the morning decorating. Lily had made paper snowflakes and hung them from ceiling pipes with threads scavenged from the medical bay. She'd colored pictures of Christmas trees and taped them to concrete walls. The makeshift wreath from pine branches she'd gathered outside before the heavy snow trapped them inside hung crooked on the common room wall. The space looked almost festive in a post-apocalyptic sort of way. After lunch, more canned soup, this time chicken noodle, Lily played with Comet while Jennifer returned to her research. She'd found more files, more logs, more pieces of a puzzle that didn't quite fit together yet. Ashford had purchased this facility specifically for its isolation and structural integrity. He'd upgraded everything systematically over years. He'd turned it into something private, something secret, something that required digital keypads and blast-reinforced doors. But the answer to why lived behind that locked door on level 3, and Jennifer still didn't have the code. She went through every document again, looking for patterns, employee IDs, dates, serial numbers. Nothing fit the 6-digit requirement. She tried obvious combinations in her head. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 9, 9, 9, 9, 9, 9, combinations of Ashford's birthday based on what she'd found online. The keypad would reject them all with soft beeps and that mocking red glow. It was Lily who found it, in the way children find things that adults miss because they're looking too hard. Jennifer was going through a box of personal effects, someone's forgotten desk drawer contents, when Lily wandered into the office holding a book. "Mama, look, someone wrote in this." The journal was leather-bound, worn at the edges, pages yellowed with age. Lily had found it on a shelf in what looked like a break room, wedged between a coffee-stained manual for the heating system and a stack of magazines from the 90s. Jennifer took it carefully. The leather was soft under her fingers, cracked in places like old skin. She opened to the first page. The handwriting was neat, precise, almost architectural in its evenness. Property of Robert Ashford. Private. Her hands began to shake. The journal spanned years, from 2010 to 2018. Not daily entries, but periodic observations. Thoughts and calculations in the kind of raw honesty people only commit to paper when they think no one will ever read it. Ashford wrote about his fears. Economic instability that kept him awake at night. currency collapse scenarios he'd modeled 100 different ways. The fragility of modern civilization, held together by threads of trust that could snap at any moment. He wrote about his solution, preservation, storing value in forms that would survive any crisis. Physical assets, tangible wealth, things that couldn't be erased by a market crash or deleted from a database. He wrote about this facility, which he called Winter Vault, his personal archive, his insurance policy against catastrophe, a place where he could protect what mattered most, not just for himself, but for whoever might need it in the future. Jennifer read until her eyes burned, until the words blurred together. The journal entries became more philosophical toward the end, more reflective. Ashford knew he was dying. He wrote about regrets, no children, no close family, a life spent building walls instead of relationships. He wrote about his hope that Winter Vault would serve its purpose someday, that someone would find it and understand what he tried to do. And on one of the last pages, dated July 10th, 2018, 4 days before that final maintenance log entry, he wrote something that made her breath catch in her throat. The code is what matters most. Not money, not metal, not even survival. The code is family. The code is love. The code is why we preserve anything at all. Below that, almost as an afterthought, 6 numbers written in the margin, 071408. Jennifer stared at the numbers, 071408. July 14th, 2008. It took her a moment to realize what that date might mean. She flipped back through the journal, looking for references. There, an entry from 2008, Ashford writing about the 10th anniversary of his mother's death, the woman who'd raised him alone after his father left, who'd worked 3 jobs to put him through college, who died before seeing him succeed, before knowing that her son would become a billionaire. July 14th, 1998. The code wasn't random. It was a memorial encoded into security. A son's grief turned into 6 digits that would outlast him. Jennifer read Ashford's final entry again, slowly this time. For whoever finds this, if you've made it this far, if you've restored power and survived the isolation and still want to know what's behind the door, then you've already proven you're the kind of person I built this for. Someone who doesn't give up. Someone who fights. The code is a gift. Use it wisely. Use it well. And maybe, just maybe, use it to help others the way I wish I'd helped more people when I had the chance. Christmas night in an underground bunker. Lily sleeping peacefully for the first time in months. A journal written by a dead billionaire, and a code that might unlock something extraordinary or nothing at all. Jennifer stood, the journal in her hand, and walked to level 3. The hallway felt colder than the levels above, as if this section existed in its own climate zone. The door waited at the end of the corridor, exactly where it had been for years, patient as stone. The keypad glowed its dull red, casting shadows that made the warning stencil look almost alive. Authorized access only, security level required, asset storage. She stood in front of it, fingers hovering over the keys, 6 digits, 071408. A date that meant everything to a man who died alone. A code he'd left behind like a message in a bottle, hoping someone would find it and understand. Jennifer entered the first number, 0. The keypad beeped, accepting it. Then 7. Another beep, 1408. The screen flickered. The red glow changed to green. A mechanical sound came from inside the door. Heavy locks disengaging, bolts sliding back with the precision of Swiss clockwork. The word on the screen changed from lock to open. Jennifer grabbed the handle. It turned smoothly in her grip, well-maintained despite years of disuse. The door, despite its obvious weight, swung inward with almost no resistance, revealing darkness beyond. But this darkness felt different. Colder, more controlled, more intentional. Motion sensors detected her presence. Lights began activating automatically. Fluorescent tubes flickering to life in sequence, flooding the space with cool, white illumination that seemed harsh after the softer lighting of the upper levels. What Jennifer saw in that light made her knees weak, made her grip the doorframe for support, made her question whether she was really awake or still asleep in the bunk room, dreaming impossible things her desperate mind had conjured. The vault wasn't a room. It was a cathedral carved into living rock, 30 feet high at its apex, stretching back into the mountain maybe 100 feet. And it was full, not with boxes or supplies or survival gear. It was full of wealth, organized wealth, cataloged wealth, preserved wealth arranged with the kind of obsessive care that spoke to years of planning. Glass cases lined the walls on either side, each one climate-controlled according to small displays showing temperature and humidity, each one containing something valuable. Jennifer moved forward slowly, her footsteps echoing off concrete and steel, the sound of each step bouncing back to her like the chamber was speaking. The first case was maybe 8 feet long and 4 feet high. Inside were coins, not just any coins, but rare specimens organized in velvet-lined trays with small printed labels beneath each one. Gold eagles that caught the light and threw it back. Silver maple leafs arranged by year. Morgan dollars with dates from the 1800s, each one in its own protective capsule. Foreign coins with unfamiliar scripts. Chinese pandas, Austrian philharmonics, South African Krugerrands. Pieces that looked ancient and impossibly valuable. Jennifer recognized some of them from her limited knowledge, but many were foreign to her. Each tray had a small inventory card. She pulled out her phone and photographed one, zooming in to read the precise handwriting. 1889 Carson City Morgan dollar, MS-65 condition. Estimated value, $45,000. One coin, $45,000. And there were hundreds of coins in this case alone. Lily's voice drifted up from memory. Mama, are we rich now? She'd asked that question yesterday, pointing at the generator, the working lights, the running water. Jennifer hadn't known how to answer then. She didn't know how to answer now. The next case held paper currency, but not modern bills. These were large format notes from the early 1900s, ornate as art prints. Silver certificates and gold certificates with engravings so detailed they looked like they'd been made by monks. Confederate currency from the Civil War. Worthless as money but valuable to collectors who paid for history. Foreign notes from countries that no longer existed. German Reichsmarks that spoke of Weimar hyperinflation. Soviet rubles printed before the collapse. Chinese yuan from before the revolution. Each bill a snapshot of empires that had crumbled. The inventory card for this case showed a different kind of breakdown. Historical currency collection, 347 pieces. Total estimated collector value, $8,200,000. Jennifer had to sit down. There was a bench positioned in the center of the vault, probably placed there by Ashford for exactly this purpose. For moments when the scope of wealth became overwhelming. The leather was cracked but still supportive. She sat and tried to breathe normally, but her chest felt tight, like she was underwater. The artwork section came next, and even Jennifer's untrained eye could see these weren't prints or reproductions. These were original pieces, each one mounted in a climate-controlled frame, each one accompanied by a certificate of authenticity and provenance documentation sealed in plastic sleeves. One painting showed a harbor scene, boats at sunset, done in impressionist style with thick brushstrokes and luminous colors that seemed to glow even in the vault's artificial light. The label read, the Harbor at Dusk, attributed to Frederick Child Hassam, circa 1900. Authentication by Sotheby's, 2012. Estimated value, $4,700,000. Nearly $5 million for a single painting. The canvas was maybe 2 feet by 3 feet. Beautiful, certainly, but not particularly large. And there were more. A small bronze sculpture of a dancer, authenticated as a Degas study piece, $2,100,000. A watercolor landscape by Winslow Homer showing the Maine coast, $3,800,000. A modernist piece by someone named Marsden Hartley that Jennifer didn't personally like, but which was valued at $1,500,000. Each piece had been purchased at auction or through private sales between 1988 and 2016. Ashford had been collecting steadily for nearly 30 years, always choosing pieces that were important enough to hold value, but not so famous they'd be missed or tracked by authorities. He'd been building a portable, preservable fortune, piece by piece, hiding it away against some imagined catastrophe. The main vault section took up the back half of the chamber. Here the walls were lined floor to ceiling with safety deposit boxes, each one about the size of a shoebox, each one labeled with a date and sequential number. They started in the lower left corner with 1986-001 and proceeded chronologically up and across, ending in the upper right with 2017-412. 412 boxes. Jennifer did the math quickly. If Ashford had been filling these steadily from 1986 to 2017, that was 31 years of accumulation. Roughly 13 boxes per year. More than one per month. A systematic, almost ritualistic commitment to preservation. She approached the first box. A small key hung on a hook beside it, color-coded with a red tag. She took the key, inserted it into the lock, and pulled the box from its slot. It was heavier than expected, dense with whatever it contained. She carried it to the central desk and set it down, the metal making a solid thunk against wood. Inside, nestled in foam padding, were gold coins, Krugerrands to be specific. South African gold pieces that Jennifer recognized from her reading. Each coin was in its own protective plastic case. She counted quickly, 20 coins. The documentation slip inside the box indicated each coin contained 1 troy ounce of gold and had been purchased in June 1986 for $368 each. Jennifer knew gold was worth significantly more now. She did the math on her phone. Current gold price roughly $1,900 per ounce. 20 coins meant $38,000 in this one box, just from the gold content alone, not counting any collector value for the age or condition. She opened another box at random, 1993-047. This one held bearer bonds, physical certificates that were as good as cash to whoever held them. Corporate bonds from companies she'd heard of, General Electric, IBM, Exxon. Each bond was for $10,000 face value, and there were a dozen of them, plus the accrued interest over 30 years. Another box, 2001-142, stock certificates, the old-fashioned paper kind that most companies didn't issue anymore. Shares of Microsoft, Apple, Amazon. She checked the quantities and dates carefully. 100 shares of Amazon purchased in February 2001 at $11 per share. She looked up the current Amazon stock price on her phone. Roughly $137. That was over 1,200% return on investment. One box, one single box out of 412, and it held wealth that would change someone's life completely. For the next hour, Jennifer methodically worked through more boxes. Not all of them, that would take days, but enough to understand the pattern. Ashford had been systematic, diversifying across different asset classes, different time periods, different types of wealth. Gold and silver in various forms, platinum bars in some of the later boxes. Rare earth metals that Jennifer barely understood but which apparently had significant value in electronics manufacturing. Bearer bonds from the 80s and 90s before the practice fell out of favor. Stock certificates from companies that had grown exponentially. Even cryptocurrency keys in the most recent boxes. USB drives with access codes to Bitcoin wallets purchased when the currency was worth pennies. Each box was documented. Each box had an inventory card with purchase information, current estimated value, and storage notes. And at the central desk, Jennifer found the master ledger. It was a thick leather-bound book, the kind they didn't make anymore, with marbled end papers and pages that felt substantial under her fingers. She opened it with reverent care, as if it might disintegrate at her touch. The first page was dated January 15, 1986, just months after Ashford had sold his company and become wealthy beyond most people's comprehension. Project Wintervault, the header read, Personal Asset Preservation Initiative. Purpose, to create a secure disaster-resistant repository for portable wealth, maintained and monitored across decades. Accessible only by authorized personnel or future beneficiaries in the event of societal collapse, personal incapacitation, or death. Below that, Ashford had written a longer explanation in his precise handwriting, each letter formed with the care of someone who understood that what he was creating needed to outlast him. I've seen how quickly fortunes can evaporate, how markets crash, how currencies fail, how governments seize assets, how banks collapse. I've made more money than I can spend in 10 lifetimes. But I've learned that wealth is only real if it's protected. This facility will be my insurance policy, my hedge against chaos. I'll fill it slowly, steadily, with assets that hold value regardless of political systems or economic conditions. Gold that's been valuable for 5,000 years. Art that transcends currency. Physical shares in companies that build things people need. And I'll hide it where no government can tax it, no creditor can claim it, no market crash can erase it. If I'm wrong, if society remains stable and I die peacefully in my sleep surrounded by people I love, then someone else will find this someday and have the means to build something beautiful. And if I'm right, if everything falls apart, then I'll have the resources to survive and rebuild. Either way, this vault serves its purpose. Jennifer read the passage 3 times, understanding dawning slowly like sunrise through fog. Ashford hadn't been crazy. He'd been cautious to the point of paranoia, yes, but also methodical and intentional. He'd built this place not out of greed, but out of fear. Fear that had driven him to create something that would outlast whatever catastrophes he imagined. And he'd been partially right. Not about societal collapse, but about individual catastrophe. Jennifer and Lily had lost everything. Their world had collapsed, even if the broader world kept spinning. And now they'd stumbled into Ashford's backup plan, his insurance policy, his hedge against chaos. She turned the pages of the ledger. Each entry was meticulous. Date, item, purchase price, storage location, current estimated value based on periodic assessments. The last assessment was dated March 28, 2018, just months before Ashford died. He'd valued everything right up until the end, keeping his records current, maintaining his obsession. The final page had a summary written in the same precise hand, but with slight tremors that suggested age and illness. Total asset inventory as of final assessment. Gold and precious metals, $47,200,000. Rare currency collection, $12,400,000. Investment grade artwork, $33,800,000. Bearer bonds and corporate debt instruments, $41,600,000. Stock certificates and equity positions, $118,300,000. Cryptocurrency holdings, $56,700,000. Total estimated value, $310 million. $310 million. Jennifer had seen the number before in other documents, but seeing it again after examining the actual contents, after understanding the scope and reality of it, made the room spin. She gripped the edge of the desk to steady herself. $310 million, hidden in a mountain, stored in a bunker, maintained for decades by a paranoid billionaire who died without heirs, and now legally owned by a homeless single mother who'd bought the property for $750 at a government surplus auction. She found another envelope at the back of the ledger, this one sealed with wax that had cracked with age, addressed simply, "To whoever finds this." Jennifer broke the seal carefully, her hands trembling so badly she nearly tore the paper. Inside was a letter typed on what looked like an old typewriter, dated August 1st, 2018, just days before Ashford's death. To the finder, it began. "If you're reading this, then I'm going, and this facility has passed to new ownership. I hope that ownership is you, the person who opened the vault, who solved the puzzle, who cared enough to look. I've spent 33 years building this repository. I've filled it with wealth that I earned but never needed. Money that sat in accounts generating more money while I sat in my house generating nothing but anxiety about the future. What a waste. In my final months, I've had time to think about what I've done with my life and what I wish I'd done differently. I wish I'd been less afraid. I wish I'd trusted people more. I wish I'd spent my money helping others instead of hoarding it against imaginary disasters. But I didn't. Instead, I built this vault and filled it with treasure and convinced myself I was being prudent. The truth is, I was being selfish and scared and alone." The letter continued, explaining the legal structure Ashford had created. He'd deliberately hidden Wintervault from his estate lawyers, burying it in layers of shell corporations and remote property holdings that would be overlooked in probate. He'd wanted it to be forgotten by the wealthy world and discovered by someone who needed it. "I'm leaving this to chance," he wrote, "to fate, to the universe's sense of justice. The property will be auctioned as surplus land. Someone will buy it for almost nothing. And if that someone is desperate enough or curious enough or brave enough to explore it fully, they'll find this vault. And everything in it will be legally theirs, purchased as part of the property. No taxes owed because I already paid them when I bought everything. No estate claims because the estate doesn't know it exists. Clean transfer, clear ownership. A gift from a dead man to whoever needs it most. My only request, and it is truly a request, not a demand, because I have no right to demand anything from you, is this. Don't do what I did. Don't hoard this wealth out of fear. You has it? Build something with it. Help people with it. Be braver than I was. Be kinder than I was. Be better than I was. This money, these assets, they're just tools. Numbers on ledgers, metal in boxes, paper in frames. They only matter if they do something. If they create something. If they help someone. You've already proven you're a survivor. You bought an abandoned bunker site unseen. You made it work. You didn't give up. That tells me something important about you. It tells me you're exactly the kind of person who should have this wealth because you understand struggle. You understand need. You understand what it means to have nothing and fight for everything. The letter was 2 pages long. Jennifer read every word, some of them multiple times. At the end, Ashford had written, I don't know who you are. I'll never meet you. But I'm trusting you with something I protected for 33 years. I'm trusting you'll be wise where I was foolish, generous where I was greedy, brave where I was cowardly. Use this wealth to build a life worth living, help others build lives worth living, and maybe, just maybe, prove that people are better than I believed they were, that given resources and opportunity, we choose kindness over fear. I hope you proved me wrong. I hope you're better than I was. Good luck, and thank you for caring enough to find this. Robert Ashford, August 1st, 2018. Jennifer set down the letter carefully, her hands shaking so badly she could barely control them. She sat in the climate-controlled vault, surrounded by more wealth than she'd ever imagined existing in one place, and she cried. Not from joy or relief or excitement, but from the overwhelming weight of responsibility, of possibility, of choice. Everything had changed. Again. Just when she thought she'd found stability, shelter, power, water, a place where Lily could be safe, the universe had opened another door, showed her something impossible, given her a choice she didn't know how to make. $310 million. It wasn't hers by luck or by right or by inheritance. It was hers because she'd been desperate enough to buy an abandoned bunker for $750, because she'd been brave enough or foolish enough to explore it, because she'd cared enough to read the journals and solve the puzzle and understand what Ashford had been trying to do. She thought about the parking lots in the cold and the fear. She thought about Lily coughing in the back seat. She thought about selling her tools, the ones her father had given her when she'd first learned to be a mechanic. She thought about the eviction notice and the job applications that went nowhere, and the moment she'd clicked confirm bid on an auction she didn't understand. Every terrible decision and desperate choice had led her here, to this moment, standing in an underground vault surrounded by wealth beyond imagining. It felt like fate. It felt like chance. It felt like the universe reaching down through concrete and steel and years of abandonment to offer one impossible second chance. She stood slowly, her legs weak. She walked through the vault one more time, taking it all in, the coins catching light in their cases, the artwork glowing under carefully positioned LEDs, the rows of safety deposit boxes holding compressed wealth, compressed possibility, compressed futures. All of it waiting, all of it ready, and all of it legally and morally hers. Jennifer turned off the lights. She stepped out of the vault and let the doors seal shut behind her with that heavy finality, the locks engaging with mechanical precision. The keypad cycled back to red, locked, securing $310 million that would still be there tomorrow, and the day after, and the day after that. But now she had the code. Now she knew what was there. Now everything had changed, everything. She climbed the stairs back to level 1, back to the bunk room where Lily slept peacefully. Comet the reindeer clutched to her chest. Jennifer lay down beside her daughter and pulled the blankets up, stared at the concrete ceiling. They were still homeless, still broke, still living in an underground bunker in the middle of nowhere. But everything had changed. And Jennifer Torres, who'd thought she'd hit rock bottom, who'd gambled her last dollars on desperate hope, who'd brought her daughter into a mountain to survive the winter, now held in her hands the means to do more than survive. She held the means to live, to rebuild, to help others who'd lost everything the way she had, to prove that second chances, no matter how impossible they seemed, were real. Somewhere above them, snow continued to fall on the Colorado mountains. But down here in the warmth and darkness of Winter Vault, a new story was beginning. Jennifer didn't return to the vault for 2 days. Couldn't. The knowledge of what lay behind that door felt too heavy, too impossible, too dangerous to touch. She moved through the motions of daily life in the bunker, making meals from canned goods, cleaning spaces that were already clean, keeping Lily entertained with stories and drawings. But her mind spun through scenarios that had no easy answers. On the morning of December 27th, Lily sat at the common room table drawing pictures of their new home, while Jennifer pretended to organize supplies she'd already organized twice. Lily's crayons scratched across paper, creating a cross-section view of the bunker with smiling stick figures in each room. "Mama, when can we see what's in the special room?" Jennifer's hands stilled on the can of soup she'd been moving from one shelf to another. "What makes you think there's something special in there?" Lily shrugged, still drawing. "Because you keep looking at it, and because your face does the thing." "What thing?" "The thing where you're thinking really hard about something important, but you don't want to tell me yet." Lily looked up, her 7-year-old eyes far too perceptive. "It's okay if it's a secret, but secrets are heavier when you carry them alone. That's what Mrs. Patterson said in school." Jennifer sat across from her daughter, throat tight. "You're right. There is something in that room, something unexpected." "Good unexpected or bad unexpected?" "I don't know yet, baby. That's what I'm trying to figure out." Lily considered this, then returned to her drawing. "Well, maybe we should look at it together. 2 brains are better than 1. That's also what Mrs. Patterson said." Despite everything, Jennifer smiled. "Mrs. Patterson sounds very wise." That afternoon, Jennifer made a decision. She needed help. Professional help. The kind that understood property law and inheritance, and whether what she'd found was actually hers to claim. She called the gas station in Cristola from the bunker's landline, one of many systems that had sparked back to life when she'd restored power. The weathered woman answered on the 3rd ring. "Rubies." "Hi, this is Jennifer Torres. I bought the property up Forest Service Road 81. A pause was so. "The bunker. You folks make it through the storm, okay?" "We did, thank you. Jennifer hesitated. "I need a lawyer, property lawyer. Can you recommend anyone?" The pause stretched longer this time. "You in some kind of trouble, honey?" "No, just found something I need help with. Try Michael Brennan in Colorado Springs. Good man, fair rates. Tell him Ruby sent you." The law office of Michael Brennan sat above a bakery on Tejon Street in Colorado Springs, 43 miles from the bunker. Jennifer drove the Civic down the mountain on roads finely plowed after the New Year's storm, Lily beside her with a coloring book. The smell of cinnamon rolls filled the stairwell leading to the second-floor office. The conference room was small, walls lined with law books and certificates. Michael Brennan was mid-50s, gray-streaked brown hair, reading glasses on a chain. His hands looked like they'd done more than shuffle papers. Calloused, weathered, the hands of someone who'd worked with tools before he'd worked with law. Jennifer carried a manila folder with all the documentation, the deed, the auction records, photographs of the vault she'd taken on her phone, Ashford's letter, pages from the master ledger with those impossible numbers. Michael read for 20 minutes without speaking. Occasionally, he made notes on a yellow legal pad. His eyebrows rose when he got to the vault photos. He lingered longest on Ashford's letter, reading it twice. Finally, he removed his glasses. "Miss Torres, I need to ask you something very directly. Is any of this illegal? Are you in danger? Do I need to be concerned about how you acquired this property?" "No, I bought it legally at a government surplus auction. Everything I've shown you is exactly how I found it. The previous owner is dead. His estate sold the property. I bought it fair and square." Michael nodded slowly. "All right then. I need another hour to research some case law. Can you wait?" Jennifer and Lily spent that hour walking around downtown Colorado Springs. They looked in shop windows they couldn't afford, ate sandwiches Jennifer had packed, sat on a bench watching people rush past with coffee cups and briefcase and normal problems. Jennifer tried to imagine their lives, mortgages and car payments and 401k contributions. Did any of them sit on benches wondering if they legally owned $310 million hidden in a mountain bunker? When they returned, Michael had his yellow legal pad covered in notes. Okay, I've consulted with 2 colleagues and reviewed Colorado abandoned property law, estate law, and auction law. Here's what I can tell you. First, the good news. The property is legally yours. You purchased it at a legitimate auction conducted by the estate's property management company. Everything within the property boundaries at time of transfer becomes yours as the new owner. That's standard real estate law. Jennifer exhaled. She hadn't realized she'd been holding her breath. The more complex question is whether the estate can make a claim that this vault represents assets they didn't know about and therefore should have been part of probate. I researched Robert Ashford's estate settlement. It was completed in 2019, about a year after his death. Everything was liquidated or donated according to his will. The property we're discussing was listed as undeveloped land, Teller County, valued at approximately $5,000. It was sold at auction after no private buyers emerged, standard procedure for low-value properties. So they didn't know what was there. Correct. And here's where it gets interesting. From a legal standpoint, Ashford clearly structured his ownership to hide this facility. He used shell corporations, remote holdings, minimal documentation. He deliberately kept it out of his estate planning. That means he intended for it to pass to a subsequent owner without estate involvement. His letter, which you've shown me, makes that intent explicit. Michael leaned forward. Intent matters in law. Ashford wanted someone to find this. He wanted it to go to that person. He created the conditions for that transfer. You are that person. You found it. You own the property it's on, and his documented intent was for you to have it. That's a very strong legal position. Jennifer heard the hesitation in his voice. But it needs to be done correctly, transparently. We need to establish clear ownership, document everything, and most importantly, handle the tax implications properly. While you legally own these assets, the moment you liquidate them, sell the gold, sell the artwork, access the funds, that becomes taxable income. The IRS will want their share. And if we don't handle this properly from the start, you could face audits, penalties, or worse. What do I need to do? Michael smiled for the first time. You need to hire me. Full disclosure, this is the most unusual case I've encountered in 23 years of practice. It's also potentially the most important. If we do this right, you're looking at life-changing wealth managed properly. If we do it wrong, you're looking at legal problems that could tie everything up for years. I charge $250 an hour, but for something like this, I'd be willing to work on contingency if needed, 5% of whatever we successfully establish as your legal assets. Jennifer did the math quickly. 5% of $310 million was over $15 million. That's a lot of money. It is, but it's also fair compensation for the work involved, and it ensures my interests align with yours. I want to establish the highest possible legal value because it benefits both of us. But Ms. Torres, if you can't afford hourly fees right now, I understand. We can structure this however works for you. Jennifer thought about the $750 she'd paid for the property, about the $50 she had left in her pocket, about the $310 million sitting in a vault in a mountain. Contingency is fine, 5% is fair. When can we start? They started that afternoon. Over the next 3 weeks, Jennifer's life became a careful balance. During the May, while Lily attended the small elementary school in Cristola, enrollment waived, supplies donated by the PTA after Jennifer explained their situation, Jennifer worked with Michael to document, catalog, and legally establish every asset in the vault. They brought in appraisers and authenticators and specialists, each one required to sign non-disclosure agreements before even learning the location. An expert in rare coins from Denver, an art authenticator from Santa Fe, a precious metals assayer from Phoenix. Each one descended into the vault, spent days examining contents, and emerged with documentation that made Jennifer's head spin. The rare coin collection alone took 2 weeks to fully catalog. Final authenticated value, $53,800,000. Higher than Ashford's estimate because several pieces had appreciated significantly since his last assessment. The art collection required 3 separate experts to verify provenance and condition. Final value, $38,200,000. The bearer bonds and stock certificates needed a forensic accountant to track down which companies still honored the old paper shares and what they were worth now. Final value, $167,400,000. Much higher than estimated because several tech stocks had split multiple times since Ashford's purchases. The total, after 3 weeks of exhaustive documentation, came to $327,600,000, $17 million more than Ashford's final estimate, thanks to market appreciation and conservative initial valuations. Michael filed paperwork with Teller County, establishing Jennifer's ownership of the property and all contents. He filed documentation with the IRS establishing intent to declare income from asset liquidation. He structured everything transparently, proactively, leaving no room for future questions about legitimacy or intent to hide wealth. The key is that we're not trying to avoid taxes or hide anything. We're establishing clear ownership and then following every rule precisely. The IRS appreciates that, courts appreciate that, and it protects you from anyone who might later claim you did something improper. Jennifer appreciated the caution, even though part of her wanted to just sell everything and start helping people immediately. But she understood doing it right meant doing it slowly, carefully, with every step documented and legal. Anything else risked losing everything to lawsuits or government seizure. Then Clayton Ashford appeared. It was January 3rd. Jennifer was at the bunker organizing level 2 storage rooms, taking inventory of supplies left behind that might be useful. The knock on the outer steel door made her freeze. No one had visited since they'd arrived. No neighbors for 12 miles. No reason for anyone to come here. She opened the door to find a man in an expensive suit standing in the snow. Charcoal gray, tailored, Italian shoes caked with mud. Mid-40s, dark hair graying at the temples, cold eyes that assessed her with the calculation of someone used to evaluating assets. A Mercedes SUV was parked behind her Civic. "Miss Torres?" His voice was smooth, professional, the kind that closed deals in boardrooms. "Yes," he extended his hand. "Clayton Ashford, we need to talk." Jennifer's stomach dropped. "Ashford?" "Robert Ashford was my uncle, my mother's half-brother. May I come in? It's rather cold out here." Jennifer didn't want to let him in, but refusing seemed suspicious. She led him to the common room, her mind racing. Lily was at school. Good. She didn't want her daughter seeing this. Clayton sat without being invited. "I'll be direct. My Uncle Robert and I weren't close. Family complications. But when he died, estate lawyers were supposed to locate all heirs. They found none. Robert never married, no children. Estate was liquidated, sold off piecemeal. But they missed something." He pulled out a folder from his briefcase. "This facility, Winter Vault, and everything in it. I've done my research, Miss Torres. I know what's down there. I know what it's worth." Jennifer's hands clenched. "I bought this property legally. I'm not disputing that, but the contents weren't included in estate probate. They should have been. As blood relative, I have standing to contest." He slid a document across the table. "I've already filed a claim in Teller County Court contesting your ownership of vault contents. Everything Jennifer had found, everything Ashford had intended, threatened by a man claiming family connection. However," Clayton continued, "I'm a reasonable man. Litigation is expensive, time-consuming, uncertain outcome. So I'm prepared to settle. Give me 80%, you keep 20% for your trouble. That's still over $60 million for you, Miss Torres. More than enough for a comfortable life. And you avoid a legal battle you might lose." Jennifer stared at the paper, then at him. "I need to talk to my lawyer." Clayton smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. "You do that, but courts tend to favor blood relatives over opportunistic strangers. No offense intended, of course." He stood, handed her a business card. "My attorney's information is on the back. Have your lawyer call mine. Let's resolve this civilly." He walked to the door, paused. "Oh, and Miss Torres, I'd advise against liquidating any assets before this is settled. Could be construed as intent to defraud rightful heirs." He left, Mercedes crunching over snow. Jennifer stood holding the business card, hands shaking. Everything she'd found, everything Ashford intended for whoever was desperate enough to look, threatened by a man in an expensive suit claiming blood gave him rights. Michael's response was immediate when she called. Don't respond to anything without consulting me first. And Jennifer? Don't talk to him again without me present. Days passed. Jennifer couldn't access the vault, afraid of appearing guilty, of doing anything that might hurt her case. Sheriff Wade Harrison showed up a week after Clayton's visit. Teller County Sheriff, early 50s, weathered face, sharp eyes. Miss Torres, need to ask you a few questions. She led him to the common room, the space that was becoming an interrogation center. Wade pulled out a notebook. I've gotten some questions about your situation here. You bought this property for $750. That's public record. Now suddenly I'm hearing about you making anonymous donations. School district got $50,000. Community center got $30,000. Library got $25,000. Where's this money coming from, Miss Torres? Jennifer's legal instincts, what few she had, kicked in. I've found valuable items left behind by the previous owner. I'm working with a lawyer to properly report everything. Wade wrote in his notebook. Previous owner being Robert Ashford? Yes. Who's been dead 5 years? Yes. And these valuable items, how valuable we talking? I'd rather not say until my lawyer advises me. Wade closed his notebook, looked at her steadily. Miss Torres, I'll be direct with you. I don't know if you found pirate treasure or stumbled into something illegal, but I need to verify nothing criminal's going on here. I'll be conducting an inquiry. Expect more questions. 2 days later came Margaret Voss from the IRS. Dark pantsuit, government ID, eyes that missed nothing. Miss Torres, I'm Margaret Voss, IRS Criminal Investigation Division. Criminal investigation? May I come in? Jennifer called Michael first. Don't say anything until I get there. I'm an hour away. Ask her to wait or come back. Margaret agreed to wait, sat in the common room for a full hour, examining the space with professional curiosity. When Michael finally arrived, slightly out of breath from rushing, Margaret got straight to business. Mr. Brennan, your client's in an unusual situation. We've been alerted to potential unreported income. Large asset liquidation without proper documentation. Michael's voice was calm, measured. My client hasn't liquidated any assets yet. We're in the process of properly documenting everything for tax filing. Yet she's made donations totaling over $100,000. Where did that money come from? Jennifer, with Michael nodding approval, spoke carefully. Personal savings, from before I bought the property. Margaret's expression didn't change. Miss Torres, your tax returns for the past 3 years show income of $42,000, $39,000, and zero. Last year, you reported zero income. How do you have $100,000 in savings? Michael intervened. Are you charging my client with something? Not yet, but we'll be conducting an audit. I expect full cooperation and documentation. She handed Jennifer a thick packet of forms. Fill these out. Provide documentation for all income and expenditures for the past 5 years. If you found assets as you claim, we need complete accounting. Tax evasion is a federal crime, Miss Torres. I'm sure you understand the seriousness. She left Jennifer holding a stack of IRS forms, feeling like a criminal when she'd done nothing wrong. 3 weeks after Clayton first appeared came the hearing. Teller County Courthouse. Jennifer with Michael Brennan in his worn suit and scuffed briefcase. Clayton with a team of 3 attorneys from a high-powered Denver firm, designer suits, matching leather portfolios. Judge Martha Kerrigan presiding. 60s, gray hair pulled back, sharp eyes behind rimless glasses. Reputation for no-nonsense rulings. The courtroom was half full. Local reporters, curious Cristola residents, Sheriff Wade Harrison in the back row, Margaret Voss taking notes. This wasn't just a legal hearing. This was Jennifer's life being judged in public. Clayton's lead attorney was Richard Sutherland, all polish and expensive haircut. He presented genealogy evidence systematically. Clayton's mother, Diane Ashford, was Robert's half-sister. Different mothers. Robert's father had an affair. Diane, born 1955. Robert, born 1947. Never close, but blood connection documented. birth certificates, DNA test results. Your Honor, Robert Ashford died intestate regarding this facility. His will made no mention of Wintervault Holdings or this property. Estate lawyers failed to locate all heirs. My client's mother, Diane, died in 2015, but Clayton is a direct descendant. Under Colorado probate law, this represents undistributed estate assets. Should have been included in the 2019 settlement. Ms. Torres purchased property? Yes. But contents of the vault were never part of the sale. They're estate assets that should pass to the rightful heir. He presented an expert witness, an estate law professor who testified about Colorado intestate succession. When deceased has no children or spouse, estate passes to siblings, or if siblings are deceased to their descendants. Mr. Clayton Ashford has legitimate standing as nephew. Michael stood. He looked small compared to the Denver team, but his voice was steady, confident. Your Honor, this isn't about what Colorado law typically requires. This is about documented intent. He presented Ashford's letter to the court. Judge Kerrigan read carefully, silence settling over the courtroom like snow. Robert Ashford explicitly states he's leaving this to chance, to whoever finds it, not to family, not to estate. He deliberately excluded Wintervault from estate planning, used shell corporations specifically to hide it. Michael presented evidence methodically. Wintervault Holdings LLC, created in 1996. Layers of legal structure designed for secrecy. Robert's journal entries about preserving for someone who needs it. Maintenance logs showing obsessive care until death, then sudden cessation, proving Robert was the only one with knowledge. Your Honor, this wasn't a forgotten asset. This was an intentional gift to a future finder. Ms. Torres purchased the property legitimately, explored it, restored systems, solved the puzzle Robert left. She found the code, opened the vault, read his letter. She is the person Robert intended to have this wealth. Intent matters in law. He presented his own expert, a property law professor. When a deceased creates conditions for transfer outside normal estate channels and documents that intent explicitly, courts generally honor testamentary intent. This letter is clear. Robert wanted the finder to have the wealth. Judge Kerrigan called Jennifer to the stand. She walked forward on shaking legs, was sworn in, sat facing the judge in the courtroom and Clayton's cold eyes. Michael kept it simple. Ms. Torres, tell the court how you came to purchase this property. Jennifer explained. Lost her job, lost her home, living in a car with her daughter. Found the listing at 2 in the morning, desperate for shelter. Bid $750, nearly everything she had left. I wasn't looking for treasure, Your Honor. I was looking for a place where my daughter could be warm and safe. Everything else I found by accident, by curiosity, by not giving up. What did you do when you found the vault? I read Mr. Ashford's letter. I understood what he wanted. He wanted someone who'd use the wealth to help others. So that's what I've started doing. She described the plans she was forming. Apprenticeship programs for people who needed skills, transitional housing for homeless families, a foundation to help people like she'd been helped. Mr. Ashford spent 30 years afraid to use his wealth for good. I won't make that mistake. Sutherland called Clayton to the stand. Clayton was polished, confident, told a story of a estranged family. His mother reaching out to Uncle Robert late in life, being rebuffed, hurt by rejection. My mother died hoping for reconciliation that never came. She deserved better. Our family deserved better. Mr. Ashford, what would you do with this wealth if awarded to you? Clayton didn't hesitate. Invest it properly. Ensure it generates returns for years to come. Perhaps establish a family trust. Make sure the Ashford legacy continues appropriately. Judge Kerrigan leaned forward. And helping others? Charitable work? Clayton hesitated just slightly. Of course, Your Honor. Eventually. But first priority would be securing the assets, making sure they're managed by professionals, not just given away emotionally. He glanced at Jennifer with barely concealed disdain. Michael stood for one final presentation. Your Honor, I'd like to present new evidence, discovered yesterday in Robert Ashford's archived legal files. The courtroom stirred. Clayton looked confused. Michael handed documents to the judge, copies to Clayton's lawyers. This is a letter dated April 12, 2016. From Robert Ashford to his attorney of record, David Melbourne, notarized and filed according to Colorado law. Judge Kerrigan read aloud, her voice carrying through the silent courtroom. David, this letter serves as formal instruction regarding my estate. My half-sister Diane has contacted me after 40 years. She claims she wants reconciliation. I know it's about money. It always is with her. I want it on record. Diane and her descendants receive nothing from my estate. I specifically and explicitly disinherit Diane Ashford and all her heirs. Furthermore, Winterval Holdings and all associated properties are excluded from my estate. They do not pass through probate. They belong to whoever finds them after I'm gone. This is my will. This is my intent. Honor it. Robert Ashford. Silence crashed through the courtroom like a wave. Clayton's face drained of color. I wasn't aware, Sutherland scrambled. Your Honor, we question the authenticity. It's notarized, filed with the Colorado Bar Association. Attorney David Melbourne confirms receiving and filing it. This is a legally binding disinheritance. Judge Kerrigan turned to Clayton. Mr. Ashford, your uncle explicitly excluded you and your mother. He knew about Diane's attempt at reconciliation. He chose to disinherit her line completely. Combined with the documented intent in the letter to Miss Torres, I don't see how you have standing to contest. Sutherland tried once more. Your Honor, we request a continuance. Denied. This evidence is dispositive. I'm ruling in favor of Miss Jennifer Torres. Robert Ashford's intent is crystal clear. He deliberately structured the transfer outside estate channels. He explicitly disinherited Mr. Clayton Ashford's family line. He documented his wish for the finder to inherit the wealth. Miss Torres purchased the property legally, found the vault legally, and inherits the contents legally. Motion to contest ownership is denied. The gavel slam echoed through the courtroom. Clayton stood abruptly, face red. This is ridiculous. Sutherland grabbed his arm. Clayton, let's go. They left quickly, Clayton's angry voice echoing in the hallway. Jennifer sat stunned. Had she won? Was it really over? Michael grinned, shook her hand. Congratulations. It's really yours now. Outside the courthouse, Cristola residents were waiting. Ruby from the gas station hugged her. Proud of you, honey. Don't let fancy lawyers push you around. Sheriff Wade approached. Miss Torres, I owe you an apology. Was just doing my job, making sure nothing illegal was going on. Glad it worked out. I understand, Sheriff. No hard feelings. One thing, though, you're going to need security up there. Word's out now. People know there's wealth in that bunker. I'll have a deputy patrol the road regular, but you should get a proper system. Margaret Voss waited by her car. Jennifer approached warily. Miss Voss? Congratulations on your legal victory. Now about taxes. She handed Jennifer a thick folder. Your attorney and I have reviewed everything. Documentation is actually impressive. Most people finding sudden wealth to try to hide it. You've been completely transparent. You're going to pay approximately 47% in capital gains when you liquidate. File quarterly estimates. Keep detailed records of every transaction. Do that, and we have no issues. Margaret almost smiled. You're actually paying more tax than required. Most people in your position hire fancy accountants to minimize. You're surprisingly honest. I've got nothing to hide, and Mr. Ashford wanted this used for good. That includes paying what's owed. Well, good luck, Miss Torres, and congratulations. You're about to be very wealthy. Try not to let it ruin you. With legal clearance established and tax protocols in place, Jennifer began the careful process of accessing the vault. Michael advised starting small, testing every step. She selected a modest portion of the gold coin collection and worked with a reputable dealer in Denver. The coins were authenticated, appraised, and sold within 2 weeks. The transaction generated $2,300,000. After capital gains taxes at 47%, $1,219,000 remained in her account. Her first million. Money that was actually hers, sitting in a bank with her name on it, real and spendable and impossible. Jennifer's priorities were methodical. First, security. She purchased a house in Cristola, a 3-bedroom ranch on 2 acres that needed work but had good bones. Big kitchen where Lily could do homework. Yard where she could play. Price, $285,000, paid cash. She furnished it simply, choosing comfort and durability over luxury. Bought a reliable car to replace the dying Civic, a 3-year-old Toyota Highlander that started every time and had working heat. Set up college funds for Lily that would grow for the next decade. Paid off every medical bill that had accumulated. Established an emergency fund that could support them for 5 years, even if she never worked again. Total spent on personal security, approximately $600,000. It felt like an impossible amount. It felt like nothing compared to what remained locked in the mountain. Second, purpose. Jennifer understood engines and systems and how broken things could be fixed. She understood what it meant to be broken yourself, to lose everything, to wonder if you'd ever find your way back. In April, she purchased a vacant garage on Cristola's main road. The building had sat empty for 2 years since the previous owner retired. She spent 6 weeks renovating it herself, working alongside local contractors she paid fairly for their expertise. New lifts that could handle anything from compact cars to diesel trucks. Diagnostic equipment that could read the computer systems in modern vehicles. Hand tools arranged on pegboards like she remembered from her father's garage when she was young. She painted the walls bright white so the space felt clean and professional. Hung photographs of classic cars, a '47 Chevy, a '69 Mustang, a '57 Thunderbird, because beauty mattered even in a workplace. The sign went up on a Wednesday morning. Monroe Automotive, honest work, fair prices, second chances. That last part was deliberate. Jennifer didn't just want to fix cars. She wanted to train people who needed what she'd once needed. Skills, dignity, a path forward when every other door had closed. She partnered with the community college in Colorado Springs to create an apprenticeship program. 6 months of training, full-time hours, living wage while they learned. Priority given to people getting back on their feet. Formerly homeless individuals, single parents, people with criminal records who couldn't get hired elsewhere. Veterans struggling with civilian life. Marcus Webb walked into the shop on the first Monday in May. 52 years old, Army veteran, Afghanistan deployment, honorably discharged. PTSD made holding jobs difficult. He'd lost his apartment, lost custody of his teenage son, was living at a Denver homeless shelter when someone told him about the program. He stood in the doorway like he expected to be turned away. "I saw your sign, the apprenticeship thing. That real or just talk?" "It's real. You have any experience with cars?" "No, but I can follow instructions, show up on time, work hard." He paused. "I just need somebody to give me a shot." Jennifer recognized the desperation in his voice because she'd heard it in her own not that long ago. "When can you start?" "Now, today, whenever you want. Tomorrow morning, 7 a.m. Bring work boots and a willingness to learn. That's all you need." Marcus showed up at 6:45 the next morning. Every morning after that for 6 months, Jennifer taught him everything she knew. How engines worked, the relationship between combustion and power. How to diagnose problems by listening to sounds most people ignored. How to rebuild a transmission, replace brake systems, read electrical diagrams. His hands were steady even when his mind wasn't. He found focus in the precision of mechanical work. Found purpose in making broken things whole again. By October, Marcus was confident, skilled, ready. Jennifer helped him open Webb's Mobile Repair, a truck-based service with lower overhead and flexibility that suited his needs. She co-signed the loan for his truck and tools, knowing the risk but believing in the man. His first month was slow, just 2 or 3 clients. The second month, word spread about quality work at fair prices. By the third month, he was booked solid, turning away business, thinking about expanding. In July, Jennifer purchased an abandoned building on Cristola's main street, a brick structure that had once been a hardware store before big box retailers killed small-town commerce. She converted it into 6 apartments, each one fully furnished with furniture that was practical and comfortable. Free rent for up to 1 year while residents got back on their feet. No credit checks, no background requirements, just a commitment to try. The Ramirez family moved in first. Miguel, 37, had been a construction worker until a job site accident crushed his left hand. Sophia, 35, worked part-time as a cashier while managing care for their 2 kids, Camila, 10, and Diego, 7. Medical bills from Miguel's injury had consumed their savings, then their apartment, then their dignity. They'd cycled through shelters in their car and shelters again, each move stripping away another piece of normalcy. Sophia filled out the application with shaking hands. Things like this don't happen to people like us. There's always a catch. No catch, just an opportunity. Jennifer approved them immediately, provided first month's expenses, enrolled Miguel in computer training classes so he could transition from physical labor to office work, arranged childcare assistance so Sophia could take a full-time position. 8 months later, Miguel worked as a dispatcher for a construction company, coordinating crews and schedules from behind a desk instead of swinging hammers. Sophia had been promoted to assistant manager at her store. They were saving money again, looking at apartments they could afford to rent on their own. Camilla and Diego were thriving in school, grades improving, smiles coming easier. Jennifer met Sophia for coffee one morning in late March. Sophia's hands wrapped around her mug like she was holding something precious. You saved our lives. You know that, right? You saved our lives. You saved yourselves. I just gave you tools to work with. Sophia's eyes filled. But nobody else gave us tools. Everybody else gave us forms to fill out and reasons we didn't qualify. You gave us hope, and hope is worth more than money. That moment, sitting in a small coffee shop on a Tuesday morning with a woman who'd found her way back from the edge, was worth more to Jennifer than the entire vault of gold and silver and art locked in the mountain. September arrived with cooler air and leaves starting their slow turn from green to gold. 8 months after the courthouse battle, Jennifer was at Monroe Automotive training her third cohort of apprentices. Business was steady. The foundation was helping dozens of families. Life had found a rhythm that felt sustainable, meaningful, real. The knock on the shop door came after hours, that quiet time when she was alone, finishing paperwork. She looked up from the invoice she was reviewing. Clayton Ashford stood in the doorway, but different. The expensive suit was gone, replaced by worn jeans and a jacket that had seen better days. The cold confidence that had radiated from him in court had been stripped away, leaving only exhaustion and something that looked like shame. Mr. Ashford, what are you doing here? I need to apologize. He didn't come in until she gestured, stood just inside the door like a man who expected to be thrown out. I was desperate when I came after you. My investments had failed. Bad decisions, worse timing, the kind of mistakes that compound. I was facing bankruptcy, losing my home. When I found out about Uncle Robert's vault, I saw it as my only way out. A lifeline I felt entitled to because we shared blood. Jennifer listened without interrupting, let him carry the weight of his words. I didn't think about what Robert wanted, didn't care who you were or what you'd been through. I just saw money I convinced myself should be mine. He pulled an envelope from his jacket pocket. I lost everything anyway. The legal fees bankrupted me. My firm let me go. My wife left, took the kids. I'm living in a studio apartment in Aurora now, working retail for $12 an hour. He held out the envelope. This is what's left after I sold everything I had. $800. It's not enough to repay your legal fees, not even close. But it's all I have, and I wanted you to know I understand now. I understand what desperation feels like, what it means to lose everything. I'm sorry for what I tried to do to you. Jennifer looked at the envelope without taking it. $800, the exact amount she'd had when she bought the bunker. The universe had a sense of irony. Keep your money. Clayton's head came up, confusion crossing his face. What? I can't give you millions, but I can give you what I give everyone who comes through that door. A chance. She leaned against the workbench, arms crossed. The Whitfield Foundation needs a case manager, someone who can sit across from people in crisis and actually understand what they're going through, someone who knows what rock bottom looks like from personal experience. It pays $45,000 a year, has health insurance. It's honest work helping people who need help. You interested? He stared at her like she'd spoken a language he didn't understand. Why would you help me? After what I tried to do? Because second chances are meant to earn. They're given. Mr. Ashford gave me one. I'm giving you one. What you do with it, whether you waste it or build something meaningful, that's entirely up to you. Clayton's eyes filled with tears he didn't try to hide. I don't deserve this. Nobody deserves second chances. That's the whole point. You start Monday if you want it. 8 a.m. at the foundation office in Colorado Springs. Show up ready to work. He nodded, unable to speak, shook her hand with both of his, and left quickly like he was afraid she might change her mind. Jennifer turned to find Lily standing in the doorway to the office, backpack still on her shoulders from school, having heard everything. That was the right thing, Mama. Yeah, baby, I think it was. December came around again, 1 year and 1 week after Jennifer had stood in freezing snow, with a frozen key in her hand, staring at a concrete tomb that became a home. Marcus Webb walked into the shop late on a Wednesday afternoon carrying an envelope that looked official. Got something for you, boss. Jennifer looked up from the engine she was rebuilding, wiped her hands on a rag. Oh, yeah? First loan payment, plus interest. He held out the envelope. Marcus, we agreed you didn't need to pay interest. The loan terms, I know what the terms say, but I want to pay interest. You gave me my life back. This is how I say thank you. This is how I show you it mattered. Jennifer took the envelope, felt the thickness of it, knew without looking that it was more than required. Marcus Webb now had 2 trucks operating under his business name, had hired another veteran to run the second truck, had regained partial custody of his son, who worked with him on weekends learning the trade, rebuilding the relationship one oil change at a time. The wall in Jennifer's office held photographs of every person who'd come through the apprenticeship program. 23 faces now, each one with a story of transformation written in the lines around their eyes and the way they smiled for the camera. Marcus's photo was first, upper left corner, a reminder of where this all started. Christmas arrived with fresh snow and the kind of crisp cold that made everything feel clean. Jennifer and Lily spent the morning in their house, the real house with heat and running water and a kitchen table where they ate breakfast together. Opening presents that were meaningful rather than expensive. Books Lily had been wanting. A new set of metric wrenches for Jennifer because her old ones had been sold in the desperate weeks before they'd found the bunker. Handmade items they'd crafted for each other with time and attention instead of money. In the afternoon, they drove to the Whitfield Foundation office for the community meal they had organized. 100 people came, families the foundation had helped find housing, people who'd gone through the apprenticeship program, volunteers who gave their time, community members who'd watched this transformation happen and wanted to be part of it. Marcus was there with his son, teaching the teenager how to carve the turkey like it was a skill worth passing down. The Ramirez family arrived with homemade tamales, Sophia insisting on contributing something after everything they'd received. Clayton Ashford worked the room with quiet efficiency, coordinating the meal service, checking in with families, transformed from entitled antagonist into someone useful. Jennifer stood in the back of the room with Lily beside her, watching the movement and laughter and connections being formed between people who'd all been broken in different ways and were now putting themselves back together. She felt something she hadn't felt in years before all this started. Useful in a way that mattered. Purposeful in a way that would outlast her, like her life had meaning beyond just surviving. The next morning came early, the way mornings do when you have work you actually want to do. Jennifer was under the hood of a 1967 Mustang by 7 a.m., hands already covered in grease, t-shirts stained with oil that would never fully wash out. The car belonged to a woman in town whose husband had died and left her with a classic she didn't know how to maintain but couldn't bear to sell. Jennifer was rebuilding the carburetor, patient work that required precision. Marcus walked in carrying coffee for both of them. Morning, boss. Got good news. 3 new clients this week from referrals. And Mrs. Henderson wants a full restoration on her husband's old pickup truck. Jennifer grinned at him from under the hood. That's excellent. You taking the restoration job? If you'll supervise, still learning body work, and I don't want to mess up something that means that much to her. Of course I'll help. Bring it by tomorrow and we'll assess what needs doing. Lily was at the shop desk doing homework before school started, looked up from her math worksheet. Mama, can we get pizza tonight? Yeah, baby. Soon as I finish this carburetor. Marcus laughed, sipped his coffee. You know, Jen, you could hire someone to do the dirty work now. You've got more money than most people see in 10 lifetimes. Jennifer looked at her greasy hands, the oil under her fingernails that never quite came clean, the calluses from years of turning wrenches. Nah, this is the work. This is what's real. The phone rang. Monica from the foundation, her voice carrying that particular tone that meant someone needed help urgently. Jennifer, got a family that needs assistance. Young mother, 2 kids under 5 living in their car for the past 3 weeks. Situation sounds familiar. Jennifer wiped her hands on the rag, left dark smears on the red fabric. Tell her I'll be there in an hour. She turned to Marcus. Think you can finish this carburetor adjustment? You taught me well. I got this. Jennifer and Lily walked out together into the bright Colorado morning, sunshine reflecting off snow that had fallen overnight. The Highlander started immediately, heat pouring from the vents, so different from those months in the Civic when warmth was a luxury they couldn't afford. They pulled out onto the main road heading toward Colorado Springs, toward the foundation office, toward another family that was right now sitting in a car somewhere, wondering if they'd ever be warm again, wondering if anyone cared, wondering if hope was something that existed for people like them. Lily buckled her seatbelt, looked at her mother. Mama, that lady on the phone sounded scared, like we used to be. Yeah, baby, but she won't be scared for long. Jennifer accelerated smoothly, the Highlander handling the icy roads with confidence the Civic never had. Behind them, the bunker remained hidden in the mountains, keeping its secrets, holding what remained of $300 million in wealth that would change more lives in the years to come. Before them, the road stretched toward another second chance to give, another family to help, another life to transform. No platitudes, no speeches about the universe rewarding bravery or hope conquering fear. Just action. Just showing up, just doing the work that mattered. And Jennifer Torres, who'd once stood in snow, with nothing but a frozen key and desperate hope, now carried that hope forward to others every single day. Not because she'd found treasure in a mountain, but because she understood what Ashford had been trying to say in his letter. Wealth only matters if it does something, if it creates something, if it helps someone. She'd been given a second chance when she had nothing left. Now she gave second chances to everyone who needed one. That was the work. That was what was real. The road curved ahead through morning sunlight, and Jennifer drove toward it without hesitation, Lily beside her, another family waiting, another day of building the world she wanted to see.